When the Constitutional Convention came to a close in 1787, there were still many men who felt that the document wasn't complete. It needed a Bill of Rights to protect the people from the dominance of the government. My name is Dr. Rick Gardiner from Columbus State University, and this is a Muscogee County School District podcast, The U.S. Constitution. When the writing of the Constitution was completed, it then was sent to the 13 states for their approval and ratification. If 9 out of the 13 states did not approve, then the Constitution would be trashed. There were still a good number of anti-federalists urging that the Constitution be rejected, and one of their principal concerns was that the document did not include a Bill of Rights to protect the people from the abuses of government. Those who liked the Constitution made a promise to the anti-federalists in order to get them to change their mind. They promised that the first item of business in the new government would be to amend the Constitution so that it included a Bill of Rights. The pledge satisfied some anti-federalists, and the Constitution was ratified by enough states. The first Congress of the United States, therefore, took up the project of adding a Bill of Rights to the Constitution. The list of rights they proposed included 12 amendments, but only 10 of them were accepted at that time. Let's begin by looking at the first 2 amendments that were not accepted at that time. The very first amendment was a rule that kept the number of representatives proportionate to the population, so that there would never be a time when a member of the House of Representatives represented more than 50,000 people. The idea was that they did not want the leaders to represent too many people, or else they might become too distant, too unavailable to the people they represent. Now, the problem with this amendment is this. If it had been ratified, there would have to be about 6,000 members of the House of Representatives today. Each representative today has to represent about 700,000 people. So the idea was a reasonable one, but at some point it was going to become a problem. In 1913, the United States government decided to put a cap on the number of the total representatives, and that number was 435. So the First Amendment suggested in the Bill of Rights was never accepted, and it's highly unlikely that it ever will be. The Second Amendment that was not originally accepted was a prohibition against the members of Congress voting a pay raise for themselves that would go into effect before the next election. You see, if this amendment were adopted, then any pay raise that congressmen voted for themselves could not be paid until after the next election. Therefore, if the people thought that the pay raise was too greedy, then the people could simply throw out the men who voted for it, even before they had a chance to collect any money. The goal of this amendment was to make congressmen think twice before voting for their own pay raises, since they would know that they might get voted out of office if the people saw any greed in it. Well, this amendment was not ratified by the necessary 3/4 of the states at first. But here's one of the strangest events in U.S. constitutional history. In the year 1992, when the state of Alabama agreed to this amendment, it finally had the 3/4 of states necessary to become part of the U.S. Constitution. This was 202 years after it was first proposed. So instead of it being the First or Second Amendment to the Constitution, which it would have been, It's actually called the 27th Amendment to the Constitution, since there were 26 others that were accepted before this one. But it's now part of the United States Constitution. Now what we'll do is turn to the other 10 amendments that were in fact accepted way back at the beginning. These 10 are known as the Bill of Rights. Since the first 2 of the 12 were not accepted, we actually call the third proposal the First Amendment. Almost all of the rights found in the Bill of Rights were written as a result of the disturbing experiences the Americans had as members of the British Empire. They wanted to be sure that some of the things that happened in British history would never happen again, particularly in the United States of America. Perhaps what concerned them most was that in England, the king was also the head of the church, in a position to dictate religious beliefs and observance. If you were a citizen of England, then you were automatically required to be a supporter of the Church of England. You could get into a great deal of trouble for being a dissenter. That's a person who disagrees with the religion of the government, especially if you didn't have the government's permission to be a dissenter. But along those same lines, you could get into a lot of trouble expressing your mind about a lot of political issues. You had to be careful not to criticize the king and his government. This was especially true if your opinion was printed. And organizing a protest, well, that was particularly dangerous and led many people throughout history to be condemned by the government. So the First Amendment that was adopted into the Bill of Rights was designed to protect United States citizens from these concerns. According to the First Amendment, there can be no official government religion in the United States. The federal government can make no law that establishes any particular church as official, and it can make no law that prohibits any particular religion from being exercised in the United States. Also, according to the First Amendment, you can speak your opinion openly on political matters without fear of being punished for it by the government. You can even print your opinion, and the government cannot prevent people from publishing any accurate news. You can gather people together to protest anything, so long as it's done without violence. And you can write a complaint, get as many people as you want to sign it, and then send it to the government without fear that you're going to get in trouble. That's called petition. So these are the rights that the First Amendment guarantees to citizens of the United States: freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to protest, and freedom of petition. These are referred to as our First Amendment rights, and they are perhaps the most precious gift that the founders of the United States gave to you and to me. In the next podcast, we'll look at more of the rights listed in the Bill of Rights, and we'll see how the founders' frustrating experiences led them to draw up these guarantees for us. My name is Dr. Rick Gardiner from Columbus State University, and this has been a Muscogee County School District podcast, the United States Constitution.